Kementari dashes away in the Randwick Guineas.
Hartnell lifting, the big boys come back in style and won it. It's a big finish, they hit it. Avilius, the Blue Army, Ben Battle, and on the outside, Blair House, Ben Battle. Cross counter coming at Marvello, cross counters fly. The Blue Army have done it last.
Look, it's obviously my first year here at Godolphin and Darley, and I had some comprehension of what it was going to be like, but to come into the organisation and be a part of it and immerse yourself totally in the racing and breeding side of things, it's been an extraordinary year.
Horse number 1 has been one of the best horses in Australia over the past 3 seasons. His name is Hartnell, trained by James Cummings. He'll be ridden by Craig Williams for Godolphin.
The day Hartnell won the CF4 at Group 1 level at Caulfield in February was a ripper day at the track. It was a terrific result. He was a horse that he hadn't won a Group 1 for about 18 months prior to that. He'd competed in plenty. He's a wonderful galloper. He'd obviously duelled with Winks a number of times, and he turned up to Caulfield and it was about a $6 chance. He wasn't the favourite.
Ready, racing in the CF4. Lord of the Sky goes back towards the end of the field early. Dollar for Dollar began really smartly. Straight
covered a bit of ground, was in behind. I think Tossum started him in the run. And at about the 250, I was sitting with James Cummings, and about the 250, he looked like he was just going to run an even race.
Presents down the centre with Mr. Sneaky, followed by Single Gaze. Thrown him at the 200 metres from Lord of the Sky. Dollar for Dollar behind them, followed by Toes and Stardom. Hartnell and Mr. Sneaky.
Craig Williams gave him a couple of taps, and the old horse dug in. I think it's a great race call as well.
It's thrown him just in front of Lord of the Sky at the 50. Hartnell's lifting. Hartnell lifting. The big boys come back in style and won it.
Really dug in, mentioned I think the old boy digs in or something. Anyway, he dug in, got the money right on the line.
Hartnell will win it.
It was our first Group 1 at Godolphin for the year. Started things going, and from then on we've just won Group 1 after Group 1. So Hartnell, the old boy, got it going.
Kementari got to the Randwick Guineas and just perfect condition.
I think probably it's fair to say that Kementari progressed to another level. He had no luck in the Doncaster handicap where he started favourite.
So he arrived at the Randwick Guineas in really mint condition for the race, and the nerves of the whole team were running really high. Here was a horse we hadn't won a Group 1 yet, should have won the Caulfield Guineas. That shadow was still looming large on him. Could he run 1,600 metres? Coming to the turn, there were a few horses that were bred for further and that had a little more natural stamina than Kementari that started ranging up quite soon in the piece.
Kementari gets to the outside, coming up the rise now. Siege Quebec sustains the run, going to join Trapeze Artist. Ace High's battling now. Kementari to the outside and further back to Parada.
And once he started thundering up the middle of the track, he was just claiming the race like it was his own.
Kementari gets going now at the 150. Kementari dashes away in the Randwick Guineas from Trapeze Artist. Parada fighting out second and third, but it's a favourite's victory. Kementari beats Parada.
Kementari was too strong. He'd let down just beautifully like the horse we knew he was, and was able to put the race away and win his first Group 1. So Alizée found herself at the end of her campaign very much so like the way we'd prepared her for the flight stakes, the preparation before. She was 5th up at a peak fitness, coming back to 1,600 metres after not quite running out the 2,000 metres of the Vinery Stakes the fortnight before.
Yeah, look, didn't run the 2,000 metres of the Vinery. That form has shaped right up here today. She's a Group 1 winner at her only run at this track and distance, and I think she goes so well for Glenn that we must consider her here today.
Should be a marvellous race. The lights are on her, and we're all set now.
The track was running pretty quick that day, but that was actually to her liking. She always enjoys being right on top of the ground.
And Abby Marie heads the rest into the straight. Spanish Reef comes off the fence. Prompt response goes through.
Glenn was able to hook Alizée to the outside.
You knew from a long way out she was going to win, and that doesn't always happen in these Group 1 races.
And her last furlong and a half was just absolutely brilliant.
Alizée going after Prompt Response, and Alizée the filly goes on to win it. Alizée beats Prompt top response. Heavens.
Stormed down the outside just to put them absolutely to bed. It was an outstanding win of a handy bunch of fillies and mares.
She just savaged the line, and it was the performance of a horse that just wasn't going to be held out that day.
The great things about this filly is that she's just always there to compete, and that makes you very proud of where she's come from.
You know, she wasn't rock solid favourite or anything, but she was just at her absolute peak for the grand final, and it was a Group 1 winning run all over.
I think my favourite moment of 2018 was Impending's performance in the Kingsford Smith Cup.
Favourite Impending, gates open racing.
He took on a great field, including horses like English, Lura Main.
Going forward, English kicking up, and Endless Drama's right up there as well. Canterthing drifting right back to last of all now. So
demonstrated such great determination in that race. When they took off, he got left a little behind. It looked like he was having the jockey was having a bit of a problem trying to get him settled.
Had to absolutely barge through a gap and fought hard all the way to the line just to get there.
It's a photo. Le Romain Impending, third Champagne Cuddles, I reckon, just ahead of England.
When he came to the last 200 metres, he just demonstrated such great determination and guts. There was a gap that he went through that was closing rapidly in front of him, and he just put his head down and went for it. It was incredible.
The Epsom Handicap is one of the great races on the Australian calendar. It's a handicap over a mile at Randwick, one of the great miles in the world, and all week, for a month, the team have been spruiking how well the horse had been doing. He looked spectacular.
So Hartnell arrived at the Epsom Handicap. He was only third up from a spell.
It was top weight. It's something that hasn't been done very often in the Epsom. Been one of the hardest mile race to win at Randwick.
So he got there and he was just in peak condition.
Locked and loaded for the Tab Epsom. The Group 1 over the mile gets underway here at Royal Randwick, and they're off in victory.
And after settling down exactly where we expected him to be, he was 9th, and if not 9th, he was 10th in the run.
Shillelagh's making hard work of it. Then came New Tipperary, and Champagne Cuddles heads the rest up. Beats him, comes up the rise a length in front of Tom Melbourne.
But with the pace so good, Hartnell was just able to loom up the centre of the track, and once he was putting in those big bounds, shouldered one out of the way.
Hartnell the outside, under his top weight. Hartnell moves up to D'Argento. Hartnell, D'Argento, stride for stride. They hit it. Photo there. Hartnell and D'Argento, who kept kicking.
He's so brave. He's tough. Really doesn't want to be denied. He always wants to get his head in front and be the winner.
It was a photo finish, and amazingly, the photo finish took so long to actually come up with the result.
Hartnell's got it. Number 1, Hartnell has won the Epsom with a 57. Hugh Bowman.
I think from memory, James McDonald had just got his head down near the line, and Hugh had he'd put the whip away on Hartnell and just like ridden him hands and heels to the line, and finally the result came through. We'd got the win.
I think it was either a nose or a short head. So again, he beat a quality field, and that just showed that he doesn't want to give up just yet.
He still had the grit to want to continue in his career, and he's been trained beautifully by James to be able to produce the goods when it matters.
And we just felt as a group where we really surged the feeling of having won with a horse that was as popular as Hartnell. I don't think there was any horse on the racecourse that day racing that was more popular than him, and to have won a time-honoured Randwick mile like the Epsom was a huge result and extremely satisfying for everybody.
So my favourite moment of 2018 was when Encryption won the Danehill Stakes at Flemington.
Ready to run for the Danehill. Gates are back and they're racing towards the inside spin, away only fairly.
I was lucky enough to be there that day, so it was good to see Godolphin get a Group 2 win.
In the context of what I do in Australia as racing and bloodstock manager, producing the really important colt prospect is obviously a key driver of what we're striving to achieve down here. And there's two horses in 2018 that I think we took a great deal of satisfaction from their success.
He drew one which wasn't very good, I remember, and he had to come out and he had to go back. And Williams kind of sat on him for a little bit, got the outside rail and kind of shot through out of nowhere.
Vacillator and sanctimonious as they reach the 300 metres.
If you watch the race, he should have been knocked over and could have been knocked over half a dozen times in running, and it was a dominant victory.
Encryption runs on, Native Soldier with 100 to go with Tavasan, Thorondor, then Encryption. It's Thorondor taking the lead. Encryption's getting out and flashing over the top. Encryption has got up to beat Thorondor.
And I think, you know, the racing team done a fantastic job. They put the blinkers on for the first time to get him to concentrate, and he just went through a minute gap and just bolted through there and just won the Danehill, which is a very prestigious race, and obviously from a stallion point of view, it's important to get that run on the board.
In terms of significance for our operation, he's obviously by our champion sire in Lonhro, out of our champion mare, first foal of four-time Group 1 winner Godolphin, who was just an outstanding mare for Sheikh Mohammed in this country.
I think we've bred the best to the best, expected the best, and have got the best. This horse, very exciting, beautifully bred, with electric acceleration, and we certainly haven't seen his best yet.
In the same sort of mould, two-year-old colt Tassort, who obviously is by our first season sire Brazen Bow, and from one of our best mares in Essaouira, making him a half-brother to both Astern and Alizée, to win by 5 lengths on debut in one of the more impressive two-year-old performances we can remember seeing for a colt with his pedigree, his looks and his prospects, you know.
Obviously everyone's hopes are high for a horse of his breeding and calibre.
It was only a small field. I think 6 horses accepted, and by the time scratchings came around there were only 4 left in it.
We're all set now and they're racing. Jonah's going to settle last and Space Boy given a real dig out of the gates to lead.
There were horses there that were flying in their track work at home. A horse like Space Boy had won a trial by a long way and had lit up the turf in a gallop here at Warwick Farm on a Tuesday morning. Gary Portelli knows what it takes to train a 2-year-old, and with Space Boy he was very, very confident that he had a slipper candidate.
Card off the outside, the race favourite, then Tassort is locked
and the horse had a wonderful experience barging his way into the clear at the 250 metre mark, and his last furlong was very, very impressive. It felt as good to James as it looked visually.
To the outside, 350 out, Space Boy asked to kick and does so. Space Boy in front, Tassort is pushing off the fence now. It barged its way into the clear. Tassort joins Space Boy now, and Tassort starts to draw clear from Space Boy, who's all out now. Jonah running on, but Tassort, great debut. Tassort rips away to win it. Space Boy just clung on to second, a half head in front of Jonah.
Given his pedigree and given his sire, look, I don't think it came to huge surprise that he won, but the way he did it was what set him apart from the other 2-year-olds that have raced this season.
More importantly, well, you know, I think evidently it's forced people to sit up and take notice of Tassort as a colt and as a 2-year-old to be reckoned with for the autumn carnival.
The exciting thing about him is there's no real view yet as to where his ceiling might be. So those sort of colts of that significance for our operation, you know, they cannot be overstated.
So when Avilius arrived in the stable a few days, I think it was, before the Bart Cummings, there was a lot of hype and a lot of excitement around him. He'd shown in Sydney that he was a genuine Melbourne Cup contender if we could get him qualified. And we all knew that James, you know, wanted to get him qualified on this run so that we didn't have to mess around with his preparation to run him again. So the Bart Cummings Stakes, there was a lot of pressure going into the race.
They're set for the Bart Cummings, 2,500 metres. They're ready. Gates are back and racing.
Lined up as favourite in the 2,500 metre race, the furthest he'd ever actually performed over, and never even won over 1.5 miles overseas. But we had him there 4th up from a spell, and the horse was, from an inside barrier, settled down worse in midfield. He was about 7th at the half mile. But as soon as Glyn just asked him for a little bit of an effort turning for home, he was straight onto the bridle for him. picking up runs between runners. And Glyn was a little nervous that he'd actually couldn't hold him any longer once he kept surging. By about the 350, he sort of had to nearly hit the front.
There's a wall lining up. Jarmay's running on Avilius now down the outside with Von Jamas as they reach the 250. Avilius lets down.
And it was a long way from home by the furlong to be claiming the lead. The horse had just about felt like his job was done and was beginning to clock off. And that was when the Shadwell horse, Jarmay, started ranging up on his inside.
Jarmay trying to go with it from Northwest Passage, then Von Jamas. It's Avilius at the 150 just in front. Jarmay driving at it. It's Avilius just in front of Jarmay. Yogi's flashing home. It's a big finish. They hit it. Avilius has just won.
Jarmay had a wonderful record at 2,500 metres at Flemington. I think in 2 starts there he'd never been beaten. As a horse of His Highness Sheikh Hamdan, that the family were really going at it hammer and tong for the last furlong. Glyn was able to get a little more out of Avilius, and I think our horse had a little bit more left in reserves, and he was able to get up on the line. But there was a protest lodged against us from Michael Walker, who rode Jarmay on the day. So there was a Shadwell horse protesting against a Godolphin horse.
It led into a sort of steward's inquiry that lasted for a lot longer than I'd hoped it would. It lasted for about 15 minutes, but luckily we came away with the race, and it was our golden ticket into the Melbourne Cup.
And it was an emotional win for us, race named in honour of my grandfather. And whilst we always try to keep sentiment out of business, it was a little hard on that occasion because, that Group 3 was probably my most prized Group 3 victory of all time, but that wasn't before we had to try and hold on to the race in the stewards' room.
That was the start of a very anxious and nervous 6 weeks for us all in the stable here, just making sure that Avilius was cared for and looked after as best as we possibly could, so that his preparation into as it turned out, into the Cox Plate and then onto the Melbourne Cup was seamless.
It was a really important one for the team because we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to bypass one race in favour of the exemption race, and we got up with him there and proved that he could run 1.5 miles strongly enough. Stepped out 500 metres in distance to do so, and got his ticket into the Melbourne Cup.
There were a lot of highlights in 2018 for Team Godolphin, but the Spring Carnival had to top it off for me. Being involved with the Melbourne stable here, it really was our sort of crowning glory for the year.
Derby Day is, it's not arguably the best day on the Australian calendar. It is the best day of racing on the Australian calendar.
It looked a red letter day to start with. We talked a lot on the Friday as a group or as a company on that it might be a good day.
We'd really loaded up on Derby Day. We targeted it from a long way off, but much like the whole of Cup Week, you can target these races and you can have your horses flying, but things don't go your way. There are plenty of opposition that have got things humming along pretty well themselves. So.
The day started really well. Randwick won the first race. We needed a little bit of luck in the straight. He got it.
Randwick a neck, Wild Planet's digging in. Randwick still a neck, Wild Planet. Randwick holding on. Randwick has just won from Wild Planet.
Probably the most satisfying victory on that day was Osborne Bulls.
There was a lot of expectation. He was favourite going into the race, coming off that amazing third in the Everest.
He was behaving like an old professional, like he'd done it all his life, so he gets here and he does his thing, he knows what to do.
Osborne Bulls third last from Lanciato, and Bond's away, 300 metres to go. It's the Monster taking the lead from Winter Bride, then Runts and Have a Say.
So from about the 250 metres, I didn't actually think he was going to get there. I thought under the top weight, and they've gone a bit slow early. I thought, well, is he going to get there?
Osborne Bulls and Bond's away, running on the Monster, getting tired. Here's Osborne Bulls now, descends, and Osborne Bulls has won it. 3/4 of the length, Bond's away.
Standing where we were standing, we were quite a bit before the finish post, so it looked like he wasn't going to make it, and then when we switched our eyes to the big screen and we could see that he was coming up to win the race, it was just an unbelievable feeling.
That was amazing. He really had to dig deep, and it's a fantastic win for the whole team.
Good horse.
Great to win for Godolphin.
Relief and elation, and it was a wonderful thing to be part of. A lot of people in Australia have put a lot of hard work into him, so to see that hard work rewarded with a group win on Derby Day for all of those people was really special.
When he finally did make it back into full training, for him to have established the record he has, and winning that Group 2 on Derby Day, you know, really stamping himself as a Group 1 prospect for next year. That was a great boost for the whole team, and he's a really exciting horse for us for 2019.
A couple of months back, a truckload arrived from Sydney with a few new horses, and my name was put next to Best of Days.
Of the 2 local Group 1 victories, Best of Days was obviously a huge thrill getting his first Group 1 victory.
Craig Williams had been very bullish about him leading into the race, and I'd actually seen him earlier on in the day and he thought it was the best ride of the day. So going into the race we were confident that we had 2 very different but very positive chances in the race.
Racing at 2,000 metres, back to a mile, blinkers on. I just thought at the 300, Williams just get him out. He was travelling beautifully.
Quebec into the straight now, 400 metres to go. Tom Melbourne and Parast, the outside Cliff's Edge. Sirconi on the rails. Further back is Hartnell, who presents to the middle with Lure.
Terrific ride by Craig Williams. Came out, he had to go back in.
With Lure remain, Best of Days is weaving through.
He was able to dart back to the inside, and he attacked the line like he hadn't hit the line all preparation.
Through, Lure remain and Best of Days. Best of Days rides and Lure remain. Best of Days has won it from Lure remain. Peaceful State.
We'd like to think it signals the coming of another wave of talent for us in the autumn, because he's certainly put himself up there in lights like a horse that's got a lot more to offer now. His second campaign in Australia.
Both he and Hartnell, you know, they illustrate everything that this company's about. They race for His Highness Sheikh Mohammed in Europe before transferring down here.
Again, you know, a lot of people had put a lot of hard work into Best of Days back in Europe, just to get him back on track and get him back to the ability that we knew he'd always possessed. And so to see him repay that hard work with a Group 1 win on Derby Day was phenomenal.
Oh, the feeling to win a Group 1, any Group 1, but especially on Derby Day for Sheikh Mohammed, is the pinnacle. Like, this is what we're here for, what we want to do, and just to do it is fantastic.
Dollar for dollar, with on the outside, Land of Plenty. Dollar for dollar, Land of Plenty, and Jungle Canu claws away and got up, I think.
What a carnival Saeed and Charlie Appleby had. A fantastic spring carnival. The races that they won, you know, they are the races.
Blair House wearing it down. Ben Battle just. Blair House moves up on the outside. It's the Blue Army. Ben Battle, and on the outside, Blair House. Ben Battle has just won it.
Charlie Appleby and Saeed bin Sarur, with a horse each, doing battle down the straight, head for head, and gutsing it out.
He won well. You know, there is a time now to prepare him for the big race.
It's great for His Highness Sheikh Mohammed and Godolphin to be here and winning these Group 1 races around the world. That's what we're here to do.
Big Solution, I think, in front of Homesman. Big Solution, just Homesman, stretching every sinew. Photo, Big Solution's won it.
And to see the Godolphin blue colours, the Blue Army, being so dominant on those days is quite special. And, you know, on behalf of the Australian team, you know, I'd like to congratulate Saeed and Charlie for what has been, you know, a spectacular carnival from their stables.
It's great to be here today, Melbourne Cup Day. We obviously participate in a race that it's one of these on the bucket list, as we say, for Godolphin. 3 great chances. Obviously myself, Saeed and James Cummings, we've all got the right horses here, and for His Highness Sheikh Mohammed, it'll be a great achievement for one of us to be able to produce the goods.
I had a lot to do with him as a young horse in Newmarket. My team at pre-training broke him in. He had a very fiery temperament. There was a lot of the King Mambo blood coming through in him, hence he was gelded quite young. I spent a lot of hours chasing him around the Newmarket Heath when he'd get loose and chase the fillies. So Charlie made the decision to geld him quite early, and in all truth, that's probably why we saw him in the Melbourne Cup as a 3-year-old, not running in the classic races in Europe. So.
Yeah, it means a lot to be riding for Sheikh Mohammed. To win the first Melbourne Cup would be a dream come true, and I'll be aspiring and trying very hard to do it.
Jockey Karen McAvoy, wearing a red distinguishing cap, has won this race twice. Set to run, and they're racing in the Melbourne Cup.
The horse himself, we were confident coming in that we had the right horse. Obviously, Brown was a big question mark, to be fair. When you've got a master like Karen McAvoy in the saddle, he takes a lot of confidence into the race, and down the back straight I could see what he was trying to do, and he got himself into a nice racing position. Turn him home, he just needed to find the gaps.
Cross counter towards the back of the field, Best Solution second last and Avilius last.
Cross counter came around the turn and he peeled wide and he just started to hit his stride.
I was back a bit further than what I wanted. I knew I was full of running. I was on the back of Yucatan and he seemed to be empty Yucatan.
I actually thought 200 out, he's not going to get beat. He's going to win this.
Ventura Storm and Rostropovich, 300 to go. It's Finch with a Prince of Arran on the outside. Rostropovich is running on and Marbello back to the inside too. A Prince of Arran at the 200. Here comes cross counter coming at Marbello. Cross counter's flying. The Blue Army have done it at last. Cross counter has won the Melbourne Cup.
The 158th Lexus Melbourne Cup has gone to Godolphin for the first time with cross counter.
There are very few highs in sport that are equivalent to watching a horse like that go past the post and have an association with them.
What a thrill to do it in the blue colours, winning another Melbourne Cup. Well done to Charlie, well done to this little horse.
This is all for His Highness Sheikh Mohammed and Godolphin, and there's no words can explain really. I mean, two things I'd like to do is win a Derby and win a Melbourne Cup, and gee, it's been some year to do it anyway.
It was a surreal moment for all of us to be there as a family, all at once, to see Charlie and His Highness and win the Melbourne Cup for the first time.
Famously, this is one of the few races that Sheikh Mohammed and Godolphin have not won, so I'm sure he is absolutely delighted, and it caps off an outstanding year for our whole operation.
Sheikh Mohammed Al Maktoum has tried to win this race for 26 years. There is no one who has put more horses into this race, and this is his wonderful first win.
I know that winning the Melbourne Cup is the realisation of a dream. It really is an absolutely stellar end to a stellar year.